It was just another typical Monday morning at Brookdale High School. The hallway buzzed with the usual teenage chatter, lockers clanged shut, and the scent of cafeteria breakfast faintly drifted down the corridors. Most students were still shaking, off the weekend, dragging their feet toward homeroom. But for 16-year-old Tiana Carter, the day was about to become anything but normal. Tiana walked confidently through the crowded halls, her long, tightly coiled black hair bouncing gently behind her. She had always carried herself with quiet grace, never one to seek attention but impossible not to notice. A straight-A student, gifted in both art and science, Tiana had a warmth in her smile that made most people feel welcome. But despite her kind spirit, not everyone at Brookdale treated her with the respect she deserved. In the far corner of the school, near the back stairwell where the cameras did not reach, a group of students whispered and laughed among themselves. At the center of it all stood Harper Jennings, the self-proclaimed queen of the junior class. Known for her designer shoes, loud voice, and sharp tongue, Harper had made it her mission to target anyone who dared to shine too brightly, and for some reason, she had set her sights on Tiana. It had started weeks ago with small jabs, nasty comments in the hallway, mocking laughter when Tiana answered questions in class or snide remarks about her clothes. But today, Harper had something far worse in mind. She had come to school with a bottle of industrial-strength superglue, hidden in her designer bag. She had spent the whole morning waiting for the perfect moment, and when she spotted Tiana sitting alone in the art room, working quietly on a mural for the school's upcoming talent showcase, she saw her chance. Tiana had taken off her jacket and placed it gently on the back of the chair, lost in the strokes of her brush. The mural was something special, an explosion of color, emotion, and pride. It was her tribute to women of color who had shaped history with their courage and brilliance. But behind her, Harper tiptoed in, her expression twisted with cruel excitement. She looked at the rich curls cascading down Tiana's back and made her move. In one quick motion, Harper popped open the glue and squeezed it over the top of Tiana's hair, soaking the thick strands before anyone had time to react. There was a sharp gasp from one of the students passing by. Tiana froze. The room fell silent for a moment as the smell of chemicals filled the air. Her hand went up slowly, her fingers brushing against the sticky mess. When she realized what had happened, her heart dropped. But she did not scream. She did not cry. Instead, she turned slowly in her chair, her eyes locking with Harper's. Something shifted in that moment. Tiana's face remained calm, but there was something powerful behind her gaze, something unshakable. Harper, expecting a scene, a breakdown, or maybe even a fight, blinked in confusion. But Tiana stood up, straightened her shoulders, and walked out of the room without saying a word. The rest of the school caught wind of what had happened in minutes. Phones buzzed, social media lit up, rumors spread like wildfire. Everyone expected Tiana to lash out or disappear for the day, maybe even the week, but no one could predict what she did next. Instead of hiding, Tiana walked straight to the principal's office, not to cry, not to complain, but to ask one very unexpected question that would flip the entire situation upside down. And by the end of the day, what she planned to do would not only shock Harper and her friends, it would grab the attention of the entire school, every teacher, and even people beyond the town, because what Tiana did next was not about revenge. It was something much bigger, and it started with her standing in front of the mirror in the school bathroom, staring at the tangled glue hardened in her curls, breathing slowly. Everyone waited for her reaction. But nobody could see the powerful plan forming behind her calm expression. The next 24 hours would change everything. And the girl they thought they had humiliated? She was just getting started. Tiana stood there for a long time in the bathroom, staring at her reflection. The superglue had hardened in thick clumps at the top of her head, fusing her natural curls into a stiff, tangled mess. Her eyes did not well up with tears. She blinked slowly, processing it all. Behind her, the murmur of two other girls entered the space. One gasped softly. The other whispered, "Is that Tiana?" But Tiana said nothing. She just looked at herself, not broken, not ashamed, just quiet. Still, across the school, whispers turned into full-on conversations. In the cafeteria, in classrooms, even on the soccer field, everyone was talking about what Harper did. Some were shocked. Others laughed nervously. But most people said the same thing over and over again. Why would she do that to Tiana? And no one had a good answer. Tiana had always kept to herself. She was not part of the in crowd, but she was not unpopular either. She was friendly with her teachers, polite in class, and always helped other students when they struggled. She volunteered at the library after school and was known for tutoring kids in math. She never bragged, never caused drama, and yet for some reason, she had become Harper's latest target. Harper, meanwhile, acted like it was all just a harmless joke. She laughed about it with her friends, replaying the moment again and again on her phone like it was entertainment. "It's not that serious," she said in the hallway. "She'll be fine, it's just hair." But there was something underneath her words, a small flicker of nervous energy, like maybe she knew she had gone too far this time. Deep down, she could feel it. This was different. Back in the bathroom, Tiana gently gathered her things and stepped out into the hall. Her walk was slow and steady. Her classmates moved aside without a word, unsure how to react. She walked past the art room, her mural half finished on the wall. She paused for just a moment, glancing at the colors she had poured her heart into. The brushstrokes still felt alive, like they had something more to say. Inside the principal's office, Mr. Jacobs looked up with a mix of surprise and concern. "Tiana, are you all right?" She did not answer his question. Instead, she asked softly, "Can I talk to you privately?" He nodded and led her into the smaller conference room beside the main office. Once the door closed, Tiana sat down and placed her bag on her lap. Mr. Jacobs sat across from her, hands folded. He had seen a lot over his years as principal. Fights, bullying, pranks, worse. But never had he seen a student walk in so calmly after something so humiliating. "I know what happened," he began gently. "A teacher saw Harper leaving the art room and another student reported it. We've already pulled the footage from the hallway leading in. We're taking it very seriously." But Tiana shook her head. "That's not why I'm here." Mr. Jacobs tilted his head. "Then why are you here?" Tiana looked him straight in the eyes. "I want to do something." He waited, unsure what she meant. "I want to address the whole school. Not just about what happened today," she said, "but about what's been happening for a long time. Not just to me. To others too." Mr. Jacobs hesitated. "Tiana, we'll handle this through the proper channels. You do not need to." "But," she interrupted him, her voice steady, "this is not just about punishment. I'm not asking you to suspend her or make an example out of anyone. I want to speak. Let me say what I need to say. Let them hear it from me." He sat back in his chair considering her words. There was something in her tone, something far beyond her years. He saw a student not seeking revenge, but something deeper. Truth. Change. Maybe even healing. And that made him pause. "I'll think about it," he finally said. Tiana nodded. She stood up and left the room without another word. Outside the office, the school seemed even more alive with chatter. Students glanced at her as she walked by, their expressions unsure, some guilty. A few looked down in shame. Others whispered behind their hands, wondering what she would do next. But she gave no reaction. She had already made her choice. Later that afternoon, Tiana's mother, Patrice Carter, walked into the school, her face tight with worry. A nurse by profession, she had worked long hours to raise Tiana on her own. The moment she saw her daughter sitting quietly in the nurse's office, hair stiff with glue and dignity still intact, something inside her cracked, not from anger, but from pride. Tiana explained everything with the same calm tone she had used all day. Patrice listened. Then she nodded. "Okay," she said. "Whatever you want to do, I'm with you." That night, Tiana did not sleep much. She sat at her desk with a notebook in front of her, scribbling ideas, crossing things out, rewriting. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages, some from people she barely knew offering support, some from classmates apologizing for laughing earlier, and others silent, watching, waiting. Harper, on the other hand, was starting to feel the shift. Her TikTok video of the prank had quietly disappeared. Some of her closest friends had stopped answering her texts. Even in her own house, there was tension. Her older sister gave her a look that said everything without saying a word. Her parents had been called. The word suspension had been mentioned, but Harper still did not fully understand the depth of what she had done. Not yet. The next morning, the school announcements crackled over the intercom as usual, but there was something new in the tone of the voice reading them. At the end of the list, after the reminders about the science fair and the canceled soccer practice, came a message that made the whole building fall quiet. Attention, students and staff. Tomorrow, we will be holding a special school-wide assembly in the auditorium. All students are required to attend. Details will follow by email. Please be respectful and open-minded. Thank you. People looked at each other, confused. No one knew exactly what it was about. But the rumors started swirling again. Some said it was about the glue incident. Others thought maybe it was a random guest speaker. But a few, the ones who had been there, the ones who saw the look in Tiana's eyes when she left the art room, they had a different feeling. They knew something was coming. And they could not stop thinking about the one girl who had not shouted, who had not broken down, who had not fought back the way they expected. They wondered what she would say standing on that stage. But more importantly, they wondered how it would make them feel, because whatever Tiana had planned, it was going to change everything. The halls of Brookdale High felt different the next morning. There was a tension in the air, something unspoken but deeply felt. Students glanced around more often, spoke in hushed tones, and kept checking their phones for updates about the upcoming assembly. It was all anyone could talk about, and everyone had their own version of the story. Some believed Tiana was going to call Harper out publicly, drag her name across the stage and make her feel the same humiliation she had caused. Others whispered that maybe the school had invited a speaker to talk about bullying and respect, using the incident as a quiet example. But no one knew for sure. The truth sat just beneath the surface, brewing, waiting. Meanwhile, Harper sat in her usual spot in the cafeteria, but nothing felt usual anymore. Her friends still sat with her, but their laughter was thinner, more forced. They kept glancing around to see who was watching. Even Harper's confidence seemed to waver. She had spent years building her image, the bold, fearless girl who could say anything and get away with it. But now, that image had cracks in it, and everyone could see. She scrolled through her phone, rereading the same messages over and over. Some were supportive, telling her not to worry, that people were just being dramatic. Others were harsher. Why would you do that to her? One message asked. She didn't deserve that. Harper didn't reply. She just sat there, quiet, chewing the inside of her cheek. Not far from her, another group of students were deep in conversation. Among them was Jordan Myers, a shy, observant boy who often blended into the background. But Jordan had been in the art room when it happened. He had seen the look on Tiana's face and it haunted him. He had always admired her from a distance, not in a romantic way, but in the way someone admires strength, talent, and dignity. Now he found himself wondering if he should have done more, said something, stopped it. I still don't get it, he muttered to his friend Ava. Why would Harper even go that far? It wasn't just mean. It was cruel. Ava shook her head. Jealousy, maybe? I mean, Tiana's actually respected. She doesn't need to post selfies or follow trends to get noticed. People just like her. But that's what gets her targeted, Jordan said. She shines without trying. The school counselor, Ms. Renner, had also been watching things closely. She had worked with students through breakups, friendship drama, family problems, even trauma. But something about this situation felt heavier. She noticed how students reacted in different ways. Some were angry, some confused, and others were oddly quiet, almost reflective. The story had touched a nerve. She made a note to talk to Tiana privately before the assembly, not to control what she would say, but to offer support. She knew Tiana was brave, but bravery still needed a safety net. She was a child, after all, navigating something far more complex than a typical high school spat. Tiana, on the other hand, had been moving through the day with quiet focus. She had rehearsed her words over and over again, not just in her mind, but in her heart. She knew this was not just about her hair. It was not even just about Harper. It was about something deeper. Something that had been allowed to sit in the corners of classrooms and behind hallway whispers for too long. There were girls like her, black girls, who had faced subtle judgments every day. Comments about their hair, their skin, their tone. Sometimes it was jokes. Sometimes it was silence. And sometimes, like this time, it was glue poured on their head while they painted something beautiful. Tiana wanted to speak for all of them, not out of anger, but out of need, out of truth. At home that night, her mother sat beside her on the couch. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" she asked gently. Tiana nodded. "I have to do it." Patrice reached over and held her hand. "Then speak from your heart, baby, and don't you ever think you're alone." While the main story swirled around Tiana and Harper, other smaller stories were unfolding too. There was Kayla, a freshman who had quietly started wearing her hair natural again after months of hiding it under a wig. She had seen what happened to Tiana and felt something shift inside her. She realized she was tired of trying to fit in, tired of blending in. There was also Mr. Keller, the art teacher, who had watched Tiana build her mural day after day. After the incident, he had locked the art room and stood in front of the unfinished painting for nearly an hour. He felt like he had failed her. He had not been there when she needed protection, and he carried that guilt with him now. But he also knew that mural needed to be finished, not by him, but by her. It was part of her story now. And then there was Principal Jacobs, caught in the middle of it all. He had to balance discipline, student safety, public image, and the growing pressure from parents who had started calling the school nonstop. Some wanted Harper expelled. Some wanted to make sure the story did not reach the news. Others demanded change, real change, not just assemblies and speeches. He walked the halls with a heavy step, stopping occasionally to talk to students, to listen. He knew something big was coming with this assembly. He just hoped the school was ready for it. By the time the next morning arrived, the auditorium was filled to capacity. Every seat was taken, and dozens more students stood in the back. Teachers lined the walls. Cameras were off. Phones were asked to be silenced. And at the center of it all was a single microphone on a stand. Tiana waited in the wings, clutching a folded piece of paper she might not even use. Her heart pounded in her chest. Her fingers trembled just slightly. The lights dimmed. The room grew quiet. She heard her name announced. She took one step forward, and another. Every eye turned to her. Every breath seemed to stop. And just before she reached the microphone, she looked out at the sea of faces, some kind, some nervous, some unsure, and spotted Harper sitting near the edge of the second row, her expression unreadable. Tiana inhaled deeply, but what she was about to say no one was ready for.